So about 3 weeks after the operation, and I was still in a ward, and I was able to finally get my iPhone back. And one, it allowed me to begin to start talking with my friends in the outside world again. And as well, it allowed me to do a self-portrait. I hadn't really been able to see what I look like as I was in and out of the drugs, and not really having a place where I could see, what the effect of the operation, was having on me. And I was really shocked at the image that I saw. It looked like I got hit by a truck, and I felt like I got hit by a truck. And from that moment on, I began to really contemplate what it was, what this whole mortality thing was, but more importantly, I began to panic in a way relative to what it was that I was going to leave behind. While I had no doubt that I was going to survive this particular situation, I realized that I could have not. It could have gone the other way. And the simple fact is that as an artist, I think one of the most important things is to leave something behind. And I just came to the realization that not only had I, not set myself up very well to do that, but that could be very easily, all the work that I had done to that date, 25 years worth, could have gone to waste. And that was not an acceptable situation. 2 years after the operation, I have found myself having done as much work in those 2 years as really in the 10 years previous, and continue to do so, and have been making some pretty specific changes in my life so that I can assuredly leave something behind that people will recognize as having been done by me, and perhaps leave a legacy. Yeah, that's a question I get asked a lot, actually. I think in today's world, a beginner or a mid-career level photographer needs to have more than one niche to be able to make a living being a photographer. I myself have 3 areas in which I am working down 3 different paths. Yeah, I definitely am into reportage or documentary photography. I have a book coming out called Fierce, Being Black, Being Gay, which I'll touch on a little bit later. I'm also heavily into dance photography here in Toronto, beginning to make myself a name in that particular area. And of course, the longest thing that I've been working on, probably for the last 25-26 years, has been more of a art photography relative to the human form. And so yeah, I think you need to have more than one area that you're working on so that you can comfortably make a living doing what you do and what you like best. So in terms of the reportage, the documentary stuff that I do, it started back in the mid '80s. I've told this story many times, and I'll try to make it short. I was walking down the street one day in the gay enclave of Detroit called Palmer Park, and what I saw was, that all of someone's household goods had been placed on the curb. It was a sure sign of the time of having been evicted. And as I was getting closer to the pile of goods, I noticed that there was an overturned box with hundreds and hundreds of photographs. And of course, I think any photographer would tell you that seeing photographs laying out on the ground unprotected is just a terrifying sight. So I began to collect the box up, and I tried to find every photograph that I could. And I returned home with the box with the intention of trying to find the owner. I wouldn't be able to save his couch or his kitchen goods, but I hoped that I'd be able to save some of his memories and some of his photographs. As it turns out, the young man had passed away from complications due to AIDS, and he also had come from a family who had disowned him. So they weren't interested in his photographs either. So I ended up donating his photographs to a local LGBT archive, but it got me to thinking of all the photographs that I had taken being part of that community, and what exactly would I do with them years from now. And it really planted the seed for my book Fierce, Being Black and Being Gay, which is now 26 years in the making. And I think it's an important thing to do, to document history. I think it's important to document it for the people who are to come in the future. I think that many young gay men and women suffer from the idea that what they're going through is unique to them. And if I can show them that, no, they're not the first to have gone through it, and yes, the outcome is survivable and actually quite good, then maybe I've done a service. It's been part of my inclusion into the community. I know a lot of photographers who would come to something and take photographs, and that would be the last of it. But I live in this community, and I'm part of the community, and so I've had the honor of being able to document the community in a way that I don't think very many other people have.
This is EPIPHANYNoir, magnifique elite beat.
Give me that.
So an offshoot of the reportage documentary work in Fierce has been another volume called Ovaness. And Ovaness is a book about the last 5 or 6 years of the Toronto Vogue ball scene. Now, I kind of ran with the Vogue ball scene back in the early Jenny Livingston days when I was in Detroit, when Paris is Burning came out, and belonged to one of Detroit's first houses, House of Charles. When I moved to Toronto, it seemed like maybe 5 or 6 years ago that the young kids here in town had kind of seen that movie and started to put together a Vogue ball scene here in Toronto. Which started with the House of Monroe. And I knew many of the people in the House of Monroe, so I saw a really great opportunity to once again use my photography as a means of documenting the scene and being part of, having been part of the community in the Vogue ball scene, you know, in the mid 80s, early to mid 80s. This was something that I was really going to enjoy here in Toronto. Only this time I knew, you know, that I wanted to document it or be part of it in a different way via my documentation. So I started going to the balls. I started taking pictures before the first ball. So I have really the genesis of the Vogue ball scene taking hold here in Toronto, which is, I think, a really great thing, and couldn't meet a nicer group of young LGBT people in the community who are putting their energies towards something that is fun and productive and entertaining for the rest of the community. And one of the cool things that I find about Toronto is that the multicultural ethic that comes with being in Canada followed into the Vogue ball scene. So it's not just an all-black thing. There are Asian people, there are Middle Eastern people, there are First Nations people, there are Caribbean people. It is a great mosaic of people coming to the Vogue ball scene, and it's been really an honor to be able to photograph that particular scene here in Toronto.
So, okay, let me bring up these people first. I want to start with this man right here.
Yeah!
Mr. Chris Cushman.
Cushman!
He is the one that's... He's an honorary Monroe. Snap Monroe. That's what we call Snaps Monroe. And
well, this house is Monroe. We have
he's done the pictures.
We have honorary members.
Honorary Monroes are big. He took all the He took the pictures of our grand prize winner. Okay. He took all the pictures and all the stuff that you're seeing around for promotion. He's done that. The video from the Almighty Ball last year, which is on sale here tonight. $5. It's at the door. You should take one. It's a great Christmas gift. I'm just saying.
It's not $5.
It's just saying this. So I want to thank Chris because without him and his genius,
I agree.
Genius. It's sheer genius.
And his Mac.
I wouldn't be here looking as great as I am without Mr. Chris Cushman. So make some noise for Mr. Chris Cushman. Yes.
I agree with
So one last thing before I stop talking about the Vogue ball scene, I wanted to just touch on for a moment my choice in how I prepared the photos that I do for the Vogue Ball scene. Thanks to the wonderful folks at Camera Plus, which is an iPad app, I was able to use a hybrid HDR process on all of my Vogue Ball photos. Now, the photos themselves were, I think, good, but when I looked at them, they just didn't bring on the energy that you feel when you're actually at one of these Vogue Ball events. So by really amping up the saturation and the color and the HDR-ness of it all, really brought back to life the images that that you see and that I've shown you so far previously. Another one of these photographs actually made it to the cover of Marlon Bailey's Butch Queens Up in Pumps, which is a book printed by the University of Michigan Press, and it is an excellent read if you want to understand what goes on behind the scenes at balls and what some of the reasoning is for the ball culture. But I was pretty proud to see that that two of the guys from Toronto actually made it to the cover of this book, which is essentially a book about the Detroit ball scene and the ball scene in the United States. So it's up for a Lambda Book Award. I'm hoping that it'll get it. If it gets it, then that brings even more cachet to one of my photographs, which would be great. Well, the dance photography started for me, back in the late 80s, early 90s. I had a roommate at the time who had gone to Howard University, and one of his roommates at Howard University ended up in the Alvin Ailey Dance Theater. And when they came to Detroit one week, we ended up with an apartment full of Alvin Ailey dancers, which was really kind of cool. I guess they like the opportunity to be able to make their own food and to do their own laundry. So I got to meet many of the people that I had been following for years, and got my Alvin Ailey photography book signed with almost every autograph I could ever possibly want. It was a great experience, but what also came out of the experience was, photographing some of the dancers, which was really a great start to something that I've come to love over the past few years. At the same time, I also met a young man by the name of Robert Johnson, who was dancing for The Lion King in the European showing of that particular play. And he was very young and very into dance, and he was also very open to doing some really creative photography work. So that's what got it started. On the other side of the fence, when I moved to Toronto, I wanted to continue the same amount of work, and in 2006 I met Kevin Ormsby, who was just returning from New York from Garth Fagan, speaking of The Lion King, and basically he was returning to Toronto to dance with Ballet Creole. And from that point on, I had a connection within Toronto to do my dance photography, and Kevin and I have a great simpatico when it comes to our creative ideas, and we actually published a book on dance photography called Dance Through Life, and so it's gone from there.
Was the flames begin to catch the wind blowing high? Oh,
Yes, I do get compared to Robert Mapplethorpe a lot with some of the work that I've been doing. The figure studies, the art photography, the nude work that I have completed does come across as being from the same line of imagery from Robert Mapplethorpe. Although I don't consider us to be the same, we have very different reasons for the photography that we've completed. I have been to many of the Robert Mapplethorpe exhibits. I went to the Perfect Moment back in 1989 when it was at the Chicago Museum of Contemporary Art. I think that if you get a chance to see a Mapplethorpe exhibit, it's worth going to see just for the sheer perfection in the presentation, the printing process that Robert employed with the silver platinum prints is some of the most sharpest photographs I have ever seen in my entire life, and it's definitely a treat to see such artistry when it comes to the final product. Have, however, been feeling very ambiguous about how he went about getting some of the photographs and what some of his reasoning behind that was. And I've tried to separate myself in a number of ways with the work that I've done. First of all, unlike Robert, I give full agency to my models to pose in any way or appear in any way in the photographs that they so choose to. So I do not direct them overtly into any poses. I think they have a sense of, through the media, through TV, through music videos, through magazines, what it is that they want to, how it is that they want to appear. And I think that I really don't need to lead someone into doing photographs that they already know that they want. So that's the first thing. The second thing is that, and this second thing kind of gets me in a little bit of hot water with other photographers. That is, I insist on sharing the half of the net profits from that particular part of my photography with the model. It's simply important. I think that in any situation, the photographer and the model are equals in the creation of whatever art that you're making, and to not pay them a a fair share of the money that you're going to make in a gallery showing simply isn't the right thing to do. So those are two of the bigger things that separate me from Robert Mapplethorpe and probably a fair number of other photographers. One of the projects that I have started this year and hope to complete by next year is a book that is going to take a critical approach, critical review of Robert Mapplethorpe's Black Book, and it's called Black Book 30, and it is my take 30 years later of what the Black Book is or would be today. And of course I am once again giving all my models the agency to appear the way that they want to appear in the book, and I think it comes off with quite a different look. So with that said, here are some photos.